This meeting to order. This meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. This is a special legislative meeting of the Town Council of Riverdale Park. And we have a pretty short agenda. Members of the council, you have an agenda before you. Are any amendments required to the agenda? And do you have any conflicts of interest for any of the agenda items? Hearing none, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as provided?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Lingua to approve the agenda as submitted. Is there any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, seeing no one unmute, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith does not appear to be here. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq is on travel, which he told us about many months ago. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I skipped over Councilmember Mejia. Sorry there, Councilmember Mejia.
Aye.
Very good. So that's the agenda is approved. Excuse me, I abstain. The agenda is approved 4-0-1. Are there any public comments this evening? Hearing none, let's go on to legislative action items. Introduction of emergency ordinance 2022-OR-05 regarding amendment of fiscal year 2022 budget. May we please have a brief staff briefing on this?
Deputy Director Jones, can you provide a description for the council, please?
So yes, staff seek an amendment of the fiscal year 2022 operating budget, specifically related to revenue in automated safety programs and expenditures in contractual services, as the Opto traffic program will exceed the current authorized appropriated funds budgeted for the fiscal year 2022 operating budget. The proposed budget amendment will increase revenues for automated safety programs in fiscal year 2022 by $400,000, as well as contractual services expenditures by $400,000. As the automated safety program revenue has increased, the expenditures associated with that revenue have also increased more than originally forecasted. So at this point, we are seeking to increase the speed camera revenue as well as the expenditures by $400,000. More so as a housekeeping item, as the town does remain in good financial standing, and we do expect to be in a good place at the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you, Deputy Director Smith. So just to sort of look at this and forecast ahead, because we are so close to the end of the fiscal year, we only have 3 or 4 days left. Then we need to make this amendment in order to meet our contractual obligations to Opto traffic. And this is a multi-step process because it is not traditionally done to introduce and pass an ordinance at the same time, but there are provisions in the charter that allow one to do so for an emergency ordinance. And I believe that not living up to our contractual obligations qualifies as an emergency, at least in my mind. So let's go ahead and jump through all of the steps, walk through all the steps here. The first one is we need someone to introduce emergency ordinance 2022-OR-05 regarding this amendment to the fiscal year 2022 budget. This is an introduction and does not require a second. Does someone wish to introduce this this amendment, this ordinance?
Mr. Mayor. Oh, you can take it, Mr. Lingua, Councilman Lingua.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce emergency ordinance 2022-OR-05 regarding an amendment of the fiscal year 2022 budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. I think we got a good description summary during the staff report, so no further summary is required.
I agree.
Let's move on to legislative action item 2. A motion to suspend the provision that an ordinance may not be passed at the meeting at which it is introduced, according to the town charter, section 210B. Would someone please make that motion,
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
please?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the provision as written in the town charter, section 210B. This is a provision that an ordinance may not be passed at a meeting at which it is introduced.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Mr. Lustician, Mr. Town Manager, are there any requirements to this suspension as listed in the town charter? Do we have to make any findings or state a reason, or is it just a motion that we?
I believe it's just a motion, and you need 4 affirmative votes. Ms. Barnes, can you confirm the number of votes needed?
That is correct. 4 affirmative votes are needed.
Okay, I'm reading the charter, section 209B. 210B, thank you.
Vote 210B.
Okay. In fact, there are no other requirements. So is there other discussion of the motion to suspend the requirement that an ordinance may not be passed at the meeting at which is introduced?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Please.
just basically as a touch point, and really it's just in the sake of review as to what's been stated here previously by Assistant Director Gentry Jones regarding the amendment we need to make to the budget regarding the costs we are incurring with the Opto Traffic program, which on my understanding is due to the projected amount of revenue being generated by the citations being issued through that program from the various speed cameras we have in town. It's an amount that is exceeding substantially what was originally projected in the budget that we passed a number of months, a year ago.
Okay, well, we can discuss that under the main motion under item 3.
Yes.
But at the moment, we are just suspending the provision and discussing that we need, this is an emergency and we need to suspend it according to the.
Yes, being that the fiscal year does end on Thursday, it does need to be taken care of now.
Thank you. Are there additional council comments on this motion? Are there public comments on this motion? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith appears to still be absent. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq is absent, Councilmember Mejia,
Aye.
and Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And that sounds like 4 affirmative votes, so I will abstain. Motion passes 4-0-1. Let's move on to legislative action item number 3, a motion to adopt emergency ordinance 2022-OR-05 regarding amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget. May I please have a
Mr.
motion to adopt,
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
please?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt emergency ordinance 2022-OR-05 regarding an amendment of the fiscal year 2022 budget.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there council discussion of this motion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Please.
being that Assistant Director Jones can do a much better job in explaining this than I can, I would like to defer my time to Assistant Director Jones for an explanation for the council and the public.
Sure, absolutely. So in brief, at this point, our speed camera revenue was projected at a much lower figure than what we had anticipated at the beginning of the fiscal year. Additionally, with that, the cost associated with that speed camera revenue exceeded what was budgeted as well. As the revenue increases, the citations increase, and then there is the citations have a fee and a cost as well. So with that said, while our revenue has skyrocketed, our expenditures did as well. So the net of it is that the town is in a great position as far as speed camera revenue, net expenditures, but that has increased the expenditures to be more than what we had anticipated for our overall budget. With us approaching our budgeted amount for the end of the year, in order for us to be in compliance, we needed to increase the overall budget, and that figure was $400,000. That's what we calculated we needed to increase the budget by.
So Deputy Director Jones, presumably, if the fraction of each citation that goes to the contractor adds up to $400,000 of additional spending, we're actually expecting a lot more revenue than that. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
But we are just altering the budget to cover the additional expenditure, taking the revenues for the additional expenditure, and then the revenues beyond that will just be added to the unallocated surplus. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that for anybody wondering why revenue and expenditures went up by the exact same amount. So that is good to cover that. Are there additional council questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Assistant Director Jones, for clarification, being that the increased amount in cost is projected to be amount of $400,000, could you please share with the council and the public the projected amount of revenue over the amount that was originally budgeted for this fiscal year?
Sure, absolutely. And I'll definitely cover this a little bit more in depth as well when I do the revenue report later. Let me pull it up right now for you. If you can bear with me for 1 second, please. So currently, as is without the amendment, safe speed camera revenue we had a budgeted amount of 475,000. Currently, town revenue is at 1,455,000 for speed camera revenue. So we've exceeded that by $980,000. When we increase to $400,000, that will increase the expenditure side and it will make sure that the budget is still in balance. So we still anticipate, while we're at 980, that would bring us down to a surplus in that particular line item by 480,000. But we also project to bring in, and we're being conservative, an additional $300,000 in speed camera revenues for the months of May and June. We don't receive the speed camera revenue until 2 months after, so we won't receive the June revenue or the May revenue until August. So overall, to answer your question, we anticipate about 800,000 speed camera revenue in excess of the new budgeted amount for speed camera revenue.
You mean the new budget amount for speed camera expenditures? So a net of 800,000 after all costs have been paid.
So yes, so after all, that was just the revenue side. After all costs are, we expect around 970,000.
Oh, 970,000
Mhm.
after all costs are paid.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's nice that we have this additional revenue and padding in our budget, but it's unfortunate that this is the source that it is coming from. I just want to comment on that we'd really like to get the speeding under control and have this revenue be lower. And I'm looking forward to our new safety officer. If you'll pardon my Texasisms, getting into the saddle and starting to work and working to get these speeds down, because that's not how we want to make money. That's not how we want to make our balance our budget.
Agreed.
Okay, are there additional council comments on this item? Are there any public comments on this item? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith is absent. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq is absent. Councilmember Mejia,
Aye.
and Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And that is 4 affirmative votes, which is what is required to.
Mr.
pass.
Mayor,
Yes,
for this action, we actually require 5 affirmative votes.
very good.
It's
I
a
will
budget amendment, and under state law, we're required a supermajority.
then vote aye, providing us a 5-0 vote approving the budget amendment. Thank you for that reminder. Okay, let's move on the agenda. Are there any items of new business? Hearing none, are there any items of unfinished business? May I have a motion to adjourn the special legislative meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Mayers. That motion is not discussed or debated. So I'll move immediately to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith is absent. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq is absent. Councilmember Mejia,
Aye.
and Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
I abstain. The motion passes 401. We are adjourned at 7:21 p.m. Okay, now we move into the work session, and the work session is an informal meeting still nominally run by Robert's rules and agendas are still taken, or excuse me, minutes are still taken. I will formally call it to order at 7:21 p.m. But it is an informal meeting, so we will proceed informally. Are any changes needed to the agenda? And do any council members have conflicts of interest for agenda items? Okay, well, let's move then to the presentation on the Lytton property, University of Maryland Track and Field Building.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Thompson, members of the council. My name is Ed McGinnis. I am the University of Maryland's Assistant Vice President for Real Estate. I am joined this evening by Billy Campbell, who works with me in the real estate office, and Katie Hearn, who's providing project management support to the university for this project. I know, because I've seen it, that the materials, the description of the project are in the materials before the council today. The university, first of all, the purple line is going to eat up a portion of the university's existing track facilities, the throwing fields. So that triggered a need to reshape, reconfigure that facility, which is on campus by lot 1 by the football stadium. We've been working to find a suitable flat site. I'm not going to tell you the backstory behind it, but this is a sort of the third option that we've looked at. And the property that is identified on the screen in front of us is we call it the Lytton property. The university acquired it from Lytton Industries several decades ago. It is immediately to the south of the ice rink and the Wells pool. And that is where we have decided to build a track and field facility to serve not just the University of Maryland's team, but I also want to point out that we envision this facility being open and available to local high schools and to community groups. So I just want to emphasize that we see this fitting into, so I mentioned the ice rink and the swimming pool. The track fits in with the ice rink, the swimming pool, the tennis facility, the trail, hiker biker trail facility. So we're looking at it as almost kind of an appropriate fit as kind of a recreational amenity in our joint venture property with Corporate Office Properties Trust. It's an oval. That's what you're going to see. There's not a lot of horizontal construction here. The track and field, our track and field team holds 3, maybe 4 meets a year. So as far as major events, as far as traffic is concerned, it is it's a light use of this site. The other thing that I do want to point out, though, is I mentioned that this is in our joint venture with COPT, and this proposal comes tied to, and I know that COPT made a presentation to this council several months ago seeking approval of a minor amendment to a detailed site plan. And they talked about what their big picture plans were for property closer to River Road. And so what we're doing is we're transferring a significant amount of density from this site to much better located. You can kind of see, looking at the photograph in front of you right now, that the location we're talking about is not visible. It's sort of in the middle of the hole here. You know, we think it's an exciting project. I know our athletics, our track coach is excited about it. And it's so straightforward a project, I've run out of things to say about it. So with that, if there are any questions from any of you, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. It's good to see you as always.
Mayor Johnson.
Are there questions for Mr. McGinnis from members of the council?
Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Mr. McGinnis, thanks for coming before us tonight. My question to you is the field part of this track and field facility. Is this going to be a natural grass or is this going to be a turf field?
Well, I said I would have Mr. Campbell and Ms. Hearn here for hard questions, and you've just asked the first one. So Katie, you're on mute.
The interior of the track, that field will be natural Bermuda grass. Very
Okay.
specifically Bermuda grass.
Okay, you're mentioning that the interior is going to be, are there other areas that are going to be needing grass for this facility?
Yes, the throwing area just to the north of the track will also have grass and as will the remainder that is not parking, which you see to the left-hand side. There will be a couple of stormwater management facilities, one in the bottom right-hand corner and one kind of close to the top left-hand corner. But otherwise, what you see here that is not shaded gray is by and large all natural grass.
Okay, so.
Except there's a storage building on the bottom left
Mhm.
that will also serve as restrooms and a training area. Yes, right
Okay.
there. Thank you.
Okay, so essentially what I'm understanding is that the interior of the oval and these other areas are going to be natural grass.
Yes.
Okay. The other question I have is this also going to be seen as a, track and field specific use facility, or will it also have an ability to be in a multi-purpose use facility?
So from the university's perspective, track and field use only. But when I
Okay.
mentioned earlier that I see it having a community use, if there were a sponsored community use for this facility, we want it to be vital. We want it to be open. We want it to relate to the community. The university
Okay.
has no other use here, but
Okay,
it's available if the community wishes so.
okay. Well, the question I would have here is, I'm seeing this square footage on lot 2. And I don't know if that's for the entire amount of where the track is, or if that is just dealing with the interior field. I am kind of curious, how large is that interior field?
So
The
what
green
you're-
portion of it.
Yeah, okay, so the 21 acres, 21.8 acres that you're seeing right there is the total size of lot 2. However,
Okay,
the size of this project is 12 acres. So,
Okay.
So it is significantly smaller than that.
okay. Okay. That's really those are the main questions I had was regarding surface and usage. So
Are there
Thank you.
additional council questions or comments? I'm not seeing any light up. Are there additional public questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask Ed to clarify just a few points for the council and the community.
Please do.
Ed, could you cover what your hopeful timeline is and what the total construction cost would be projected?
Sure, John, thanks. I was actually going to add that at the end. So the next step would be submitting this for mandatory referral. We've started that process. There's an initial determination as to whether this would be reviewed at a staff level or at the planning board. My guess is that this would have a planning board hearing, and that has a 90-day time window. That clock is going to start in a matter of a week or two. And we'll probably end up in a second public hearing which is open to the public. The We have a budgeted cost of about $8 million for this. We've actually started reaching out to some construction managers. We've got a sense that it's going to be a little bit more than that, but we don't quite know what the final cost is going to be. 10 would be a good guess right now, but I think, as you know, construction costs are in a great deal of flux right now. So we're really not going to know until they get in and do the budget. They figure out how much dirt needs to be moved, what the stormwater management costs are, et cetera.
And Ed, if you could cover one other point, the area in the northeast on this map is an area that's not to be disturbed. Can you just touch on that so the council's aware of
Yeah,
the
so
reasons why?
there's several areas that aren't going to be disturbed. And another reason why this property, which is in the joint venture, was always envisioned as coming last. The area to the east of this track is in a floodplain. So that's one reason why that area, the rest of that area, the 21 minus 12 would not be touched. And that area of intact deposits is an archaeological sensitive area that's been identified by MHT. MHT has reviewed this project. We're clearly outside of that zone. The archaeological significance are Native American artifacts.
Any additional questions, Mr. Town Manager?
I have no further. Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I like to hold my questions and comments till the end, hear what everybody else has to say. So I have a few. First of all, this development does seem to be mostly on the west side of the property. And a concern that I have is the sort of feel that the Anacostia Trail has walking along the eastern side of this property. So it feels very isolated, very immersed in nature. And I wanted to verify that there will be a maintenance of the buffer of trees between the trail and this facility to maintain that feel. Is that part of your plans?
It is part of the plan. You're actually the second person from whom I've heard that comment. So, so in response to that, I think we'll put together a sort of specific depiction of the buffer that will remain between the trail and this facility, the tree buffer. Again, I think that because there is no vertical construction here, I think the trees will buffer it, but we'll show you that and we'll give you a more graphic depiction of that, Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sort of following on to that question, you say that approximately 12 acres will be disturbed, and this is a fairly wooded lot. Do you have an estimate of the number of trees that will be removed as part of this project?
Not yet, but from my boss, I've been asked to get that specific inventory and get that level of detail, both the quantity and the quality of the growth that's there. And so we're working on providing that. Our intention is to do all on-site replanting. We have some property to work with.
So you'll put trees in still on the site because you have so much unused space as part of this.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question, you are a part of a state agency, and so you are not necessarily required to follow stormwater management guidelines that are established by local entities. And the Prince George's County stormwater management guidelines are a bit more strict than the current NDE requirements. And since this is upstream of us, then and upstream of many of our neighbors with whom we are friendly, then I'm interested to hear how closely you will meet the Prince George's County stormwater management guidelines, or if you're not planning to meet them.
The civil engineer has been instructed to meet the more stringent of the two standards in all respects, which I just think is the right thing to do.
I agree, but just wanted to hear it from you while we're recording the meetings. We have it on tape, because we've had too many floods through here over the last several years, and we are being
Yeah.
very, very strict. Just as a very specific question, which you may not know the answer to, are the parking spaces going to be permeable pavement, just as an example, or are you planning?
We haven't designed it to that level. I think we've certainly thought about the issue, and the engineering question that needs to be thought through is, so it's a compromise between permeable surface and transportation demand management. We'll be using shuttle buses to bring people on and out here. And that's the question as to whether the permeable pavement is something that can sustain use of buses. And we're still looking at that from an engineering perspective.
Okay, well, I would appreciate being informed both about the trees and the tree replacements and the tree buffer, and that particular issue about the permeable pavement and the parking area.
Okay.
And you said that the number in for the parking area that it's currently used for practicing bus driving, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it sounds like there are going to be fewer spaces than there were potential spaces, and I was wondering if you're going to be removing pavement as part of this project, so actually uncovering what was previously impermeable surface.
Oh, God, I don't know if Katie has
I
those
can answer.
specifics. Go ahead.
I do. Actually, you can just, the existing parking lot is almost twice the area of this proposed parking lot. You can just see a ghosted image of it. The existing parking lot kind of comes across the western end of the track. So it's more than 200 spaces currently, and dropping down to, I think the number is around 150 spaces. I don't remember the exact number. So
Okay.
it is that area of pavement is getting smaller.
Okay, but the track lanes will be impermeable, is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's sort of the track will sort of make up for that. It's moving the impermeable surface around. But the stormwater guidelines, the county's stringent stormwater guidelines will be met. So I think that that's all good. Okay, those are all of my questions. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to hearing the details about the tree replacements and plantings, and more details about the project as the design firms up. So please put me on your quick dial list and keep me informed.
We know how to get in touch with you. It's always a pleasure. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Good night now.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is my report. I'm going to give a short report. COVID is still there. People are still getting sick. People are still transmitting the disease. And it looks like some of the variants that are rising up may be peaking at the end of the summer as we head into fall. And there's some indications that one of them, the BA.5 variant, is worse for you. So please stay safe. And over the 4th of July weekend, please mask if you are in crowded circumstances, and please just stay safe. I've said many times how to do it, please do it. Speaking of the 4th of July weekend, which is the only other topic I will discuss tonight, there's been a lot of publicity recently, last few weeks, about the fact that fireworks are not legal unless you are a licensed and registered pyrotechnics engineer. And I know that there are many people in town who appear to believe that they have the skill set of a licensed pyrotechnic engineer. Please remember that they aren't legal, and particularly if something bad happens, if something catches on fire, if someone is hurt, then you may get in some trouble. So please be safe over the 4th of July weekend in as many ways as you can. There are fireworks displays nearby that are perhaps not as exciting as shooting off your own, but are beautiful and it's fun to go to. So with that, I will conclude our mayor's report. Next on the agenda is the town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of council and the community and the staff team, a few items. One on the 4th of July, I will be working with Acting Chief Wixons and Captain Turner to ensure that we adjust staffing over the holiday of the police department. Hopefully we won't have folks who fancy themselves these pyrotechnic engineers, but in the event that we do, good for the community to know that we will be staffing up on the police side should we need to enforce the law. Also related to the July 4th holiday, Town Hall and DPW operations will be closed on Monday, July 4th. There's no trash or yard waste collection on July 4th. Trash will be collected later in the week. Is that correct, Director Barnes?
Trash will be collected as a regularly scheduled later in the week, but there will be no yard waste that week at all.
Yes, so the yard waste would be picked up on the 11th.
Correct.
The Town's Redistricting Committee is meeting on July 6th at 7 p.m. That's via Zoom. A reminder that the legislative meeting will be held on July 11th, and that's the legislative meeting of the Mayor and Council. The next TRP Walk and Talk is scheduled for August 20th at 9:30. And a reminder, everyone mark their calendars. The August work session is scheduled for August 29th. Between July 11th and the 29th, there are no other scheduled mayor and council meetings during that time. And then a reminder again to save the date for the Green Teams Tree Summit, which is scheduled for Saturday, September 10th. And that's all I have this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Let's move on the agenda to council, committee, and board reports. Councilmember Smith is absent. Councilmember Foe, do you have a report? Councilmember Foe is either having technical issues or
Mr. Mayor, if I may, he indicated in the chat that he had to step away.
okay. Well, let's loop back to him. Okay, I see the statement in the chat. Councilmember Lingler, do you have a report this evening?
I have a brief report, Mr. Mayor, for folks to know. Over the Juneteenth holiday, I had a chance to meet with Patricia Parker of CCAR CDC and Samuel Parker, who is working with SEED on the development project that they came and spoke to us about a year ago. And they're looking to come before the council with an update. And they asked me about something in a conceptual way about consideration that the town may have on this in terms of looking at ways to, with those entities that would also be a part of this, those stakeholders, on the greening of the channel, the tributary to the northeast branch of the Anacostia that comes from the east and enters into the northeast branch just north of Riverdale Road and just south of Maryland 410, and extends back and runs up towards and through near where the seed development is going to be, there next to where the Purple Line is, as well as St. Bernard's Church. And I suggested to them that they come before the council ideally before the council recesses for the summer. So hopefully we would see them July 11th at that meeting, which they would be able to present to the council more on their vision of what they're seeing, and to talk with council and staff about the possibility going forward along that tributary. As well, if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Please.
at the, shall we say, abruptly amended and abbreviated walk and talk that we had just a few weeks ago on the Saturday, where essentially the rain was just not going to cooperate. Being that we had an opportunity with folks in the room at the time at the museum offices there, I had a chance to speak with members of the Riversdale Historical Society, as well as the new acting director over at Riversdale, Ms. Davis, about and as well, Director Barnes was there, and Mr. Chelton was there, about the possibility of working with these groups in regards to establishing a sidewalk along Oglethorpe Street between 48th Avenue and Taylor Road along the north side, which is the side that the mansion property is on. And all parties were very receptive to the idea. And I think this is a great opportunity to be able to work with them and be able to move forward on this. So that then, as part of our walk, bike, drive initiative, we would have a continuity of a sidewalk along the entire length of Oglethorpe Street from Lafayette to Taylor Road, and then beyond onto where Oglethorpe goes on to towards Riverside Drive.
Very interesting.
Looks like you're frozen there, Mr. Mayor. You're leaning to your left.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
It-
So I hope that my network will get a little bit faster.
It might be my network, so don't.
No,
sell yourself.
I see that I'm frozen also, so I'm not sure what's going on. The rest of you aren't, but I am. May need to unplug and replug the camera. I'll try that.
Could be, and those are the two items that I wanted to make sure that the council was aware of this evening.
Okay. Councilmember Lingua, something
Yes.
that I have researched and have not been able to find anywhere is whether that tributary actually has a name. And, just as Wells Run was known as, the drainage ditch going through the town until we decided to start giving it its name, then I think it would be interesting to try to track that. I assume that tributary has a name.
I think it's known as Briar's Run.
Briar's Run, I think, is further north.
Okay.
But we can research that.
I'm sure there are some folks who still live in this town who would have that institutional knowledge.
I would hope so.
Some who are young lads and lasses probably went back there and played along there at some point.
Okay, let me see. There we go. Camera is back now. I
There you
heard
go.
one resident refer to it as I think it was the Captain John Smith Creek or something at one point. But anyway, it would be interesting to track that down so that we can refer to it by name rather than trying to sketch out its location. And,
I will see. I will see what I can find out.
And regarding the sidewalk, as you know, I'm a big fan of having a complete network of sidewalks. My memory is that there are some engineering challenges in that section. But I think that it's good to hear that Riversdale Historical Society and presumably MNC PPC, as represented by the executive director, are interested in seeing that happen as well. So maybe we can have a at least a partially creative structure for getting the sidewalk in there, as we did on 48th.
Well, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I would say, it would be a good opportunity to start discussing, start discussions on it, and essentially have each party reveal, what they're going to be able to do and what they're going to be hamstrung on, and see if we can find a way, working with all parties, to be able to put together a sidewalk that people will look at, and when they see it, they're gonna really appreciate it. And it's just more than just laying down, a 5 foot wide stretch of concrete that functionally works, but is not really meeting everybody's desires, especially those who are walking on it. I think it's something that between all stakeholders, with some give and take from everybody, we could create something that's really going to work well there, not only for the mansion along their property, but also the residents along that part of Oglethorpe, and those residents who would be using the sidewalk.
Mhm.
So I think if we're prepared to do that and meet folks in the spirit of goodwill and camaraderie, for lack of a better term, this is a project that could work out very well.
Agreed. Okay, thank you for your report, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on, Councilmember Sadiq is absent. Councilmember Mejia, do you have a report this evening?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mayers, do you have a report this evening?
No, no ward reports at this time.
Thank you. That brings us on the agenda to public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? I'm not seeing anyone unmute or raise their hand, so I'll assume that means no. And let's move on to the work session discussion items. So work session discussion item number 1 is fence permit for a 6-foot wood fence at 6314 47th Avenue.
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. Staff seek direction from the mayor and council regarding a fence permit request for a 6-foot wood fence at 6314 47th Avenue pursuant to Chapter 66 of the Town Code. The town recently received a building permit application from Mr. Michael Moran, who's with us today, for the installation of a 6-foot wood fence. The applicant has obtained a Prince George's County permit for the project. The project includes the removal of the existing fence and the replacement with a new 6-foot wood fence. If Mr. Moran would like to add some details, please do so at this time.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Just one note, the removal is actually only going to be on the very back part of the fence. We'll be reinforcing the sides to make it, nice and strong. But after some discussion with the landscapers we were working with, and we did kind of a walk around recently, we realized we only need to remove just the very back part of the fence. So very little being removed there, which probably makes the whole thing a lot easier and quicker there, which would be nice. But that's all. Thank you.
So just to be clear, it's the very skinny piece at the very back that's
correct. Yeah, the very so the red line is the new fence outline, just going along the property line, and there's the kind of dotted black line right there. That's the part that will be removed.
Okay. So this two side fences, those facing on lots 4, 5, 6, 7, and lot 9 are going to be 4 foot. Is that correct?
Can take a look in the back because I believe there's a 6 foot or so fence along lot 5. There's a 6 foot fence along lot 27 just behind us. And I believe at lot 9, there is a 4 foot, I think a chain link fence there. If I peek over the out the window here, I can see the last of that. I am
Okay.
this guy.
But the only new 6 foot fence is on the back of the property.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And are there council questions or comments on this? Don't hear anything.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes, please.
I'm noticing along that line along the southern side of the property, that going along lot 9 and part of lot 8, it looks like that fence is set in from your property line. Is that correct?
Yes, the previous owners, it looks like they didn't want to do kind of cleanup behind the fence there. So they just kind of let it kind of lane itself into the property line a fair amount there. So it'll be readjusted along the actual property line.
Okay, so that's going to be shifted out towards the property line?
Yes, correct. Yeah, it shifts about, I think it was measured to be about 10 feet within at the kind of top points there into the property line.
Okay, so I guess then that red line is going to be, over, that red line is going to be actually over towards the property, on the property line.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so essentially, that's just a small inaccuracy of what we're seeing here on this map.
So regarding the inaccuracy, are we regarding the where it says fence along the southern edge there?
Yeah,
So that's the current fence. That's the
okay. That's where it's going to sit.
It's going to sit along the red line. So we're going to move it.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now we're clear. Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Moran, normally these things are put onto the consent agenda by the council member and whose ward you are. Your council member is not here this evening, so I'll have to consult with him before that agenda. But it sounds like unless there's some major issue, then I suspect that this will be put on the consent agenda. And so I will contact him and ask him to reach out to you and let you know the status of that. And I will reach out if I can't get in touch with him fast enough. So thank you for coming this evening to tell us about your project.
Thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a fiscal year 2022 revenue update.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Lustician. Tonight's revenue analysis report is in the same format that we've kept it in previous meetings. We'll have current fiscal year with 5 major revenue categories and then the 3 fiscal years that preceded. So the first major category is local taxes. For the current fiscal year, revenues total $7,080,865. In comparison to the 3 previous fiscal years, revenue has outperformed. Last fiscal year, we were at $6,931,000. The year before, $6,311,000, and the year before that, $5,479,000. So the current trend is that we have continued to increase our revenues in the local tax category. And this category is performing pretty well. The next category that we have is licenses and permits. This fiscal year, we have a total of 201,295, which is outperforming the previous fiscal year. We were just at 172,000. Year before that was 202,000, and then 2019 we did have an uptick in building permits that year. We were at 269,000. Next major category is administrative fees. Currently, municipal infractions have been a bit higher than in previous years. The total is $9,200. The year before was just 1,400. The year before that, 4,050, and 2019, $2,105. The next category is fines and forfeitures. This includes vehicle impounds, parking citations, and police reports. So the trend here is that the revenue has been decreasing each year. This current year, we're just at 37,000. The year before that, 43. And the year before that, we were actually at 62,000. And 2019 was close there at 58,000. But this is another category that we continue to monitor. Parking citations are a bit lower, as well as police reports. And the last major category is community safety programs, which is our speed camera revenue. Noted as 4401, Safe Speed for Students is the line item. Currently, and we spoke about this earlier, revenue in this particular category has skyrocketed in comparison to previous years. Last year was a big year for us, and we're outperforming that significantly. So currently, town revenue is at 1,446,000. The year before that, so last fiscal year, we were at 1,046,000. And then the years before that, which were more in line with what we were used to receiving, we had 605,000 and 597,000. So speed camera revenue is significantly higher than in previous fiscal years. And as I mentioned before, with the increase in the revenue, expenditures for speed camera has increased as well. For each citation, that there is an associated cost. So at this point, staff still projects the town to be within the 10% of revenue that allows for the net speed camera revenue. And we do not anticipate having to return any funds to the state at this point. Although this is probably the closest that we've gotten in any previous years. But it is a category that we continue to monitor, but at this point, again, we do not anticipate having to return any funds to the state. So overall, total revenue for the categories that we have listed here, we have 8,775,000, which is up a good amount from the previous 3 years. Last year at this point, revenue totaled 8,195,000. The year before that, 7,186,000, and the year before that, 6,500,000. So at this point, and there are a few revenue categories that we haven't included. We just focus on the major categories. Town is at roughly 120% of the budgeted revenue figure at this point. And again, we still anticipate receiving some revenue at the end of the month, as well as 2 additional months of speed camera revenue. So that number will increase even more. So yes, that concludes the revenue analysis report for tonight, and I will take up any questions that anybody may have.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
You said the amount was 120% over, or essentially the revenue total versus what was budgeted is 120%.
Correct.
Okay. And I take it the vast majority of that is from line item 4401.
That is a significant portion. But we also have a large increase there in local tax revenue.
Okay.
We had a projected amount of 6.6, and we're at 7.2 for a total for our local taxes.
Okay.
Licenses and permits is at 113%. So if we look at most of the major categories, we've exceeded what we had budgeted, with an exception of our fines and forfeitures. We're at just about 85% of what we had budgeted there.
Okay.
That's the parking citations and vehicle impounds.
Okay.
Deputy Director Jones, are we expecting more income in the local taxes during the next few months, or is that going to wrap up? Is that
Yeah, we typically get something at the end of the month. So like around the 30th, we should expect to receive our last chunk there. And then we do receive a few other revenue items as well, roughly 2 weeks after the fiscal year ends.
Okay, thank you. Are there additional council questions or comments for Deputy Director Jones? Are there public comments or questions? Thank you, Deputy Director Jones, for a thorough and well-researched report, as usual. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to work session discussion item number 3, the residential permit parking program.
And I'll begin this conversation, Mr. Mayor, and perhaps end it. So we have that the main point for this evening is that, as previously discussed with the council, we were dividing our permit parking areas and our anticipated permit parking area into 3 distinct groups. The first group being what I would just refer to as kind of the scattered sites throughout various neighborhoods. The second group being Madison Hill, and the third group being Riverdale Park Station. We are coordinating virtual community meetings to hear from residents, to hear their concerns. These meetings will not take place of the public hearings, or the public hearing that will be required by the council before they make changes to the program. But this will help staff as we formulate our report back to the council. So Director Lewis and Barnes and Acting Chief Wixons will be present at these meetings, and as will our staff person who manages the program, Tracy Perrin. And so we'll have a format of what works, what doesn't work, what would you like to see, and then that really all helps inform the staff's report back to the council. And so we have our first meeting scheduled for July 13th. As you can see by this graphic that we have here, we will be doing some direct outreach as well to parking permit holders in each of the areas. And then the second meeting is Wednesday, August 10th. And the third meeting is Wednesday, September 21st. The goal will be that any amendments to the programs be handled legislatively in the fall, with an eye towards having any amendments wrapped up for the prior to December. Because that's when applications will be handled and new permits issued. So, and if there's any questions from the mayor or council, I will do my best to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Are there questions for the Town Manager regarding this this report?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Well, first off, I'm glad to see that this is being brought up and that there's going to be distinct meetings held for each area. And at the same time, I want to ask the question, is staff ready in case these conversations turn into a conversation on the I don't want to say the The space that there is on the streets to be able to park, the scarcity thereof, and the essentially being, or essentially how folks are trying to essentially shoehorn in anywhere they can along the streets, as well as type of vehicles that are being, essentially a discussion on parking in general on streets, I guess is what I'm getting at, and not doing a very good job at it.
No, that's fine, sir. I can appreciate your concern. And I would say this, the meetings are geared towards input on permit parking, but I think we'll be prepared to discuss other parking related things. I know sometimes people have concerns over parking of different types of vehicles, things of that nature. So we'll be able to address those concerns. As well as we already have the schematics and engineering counts done for Madison Hill and Riverdale Park Station in terms of how many spaces are available. It's going to be really tight for us to have such information complete for Group 1, but that's something that we're working towards. And so I think we'll be able to respond. And if not, we will take their questions and report back to everyone who's in attendance, as well as to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional council questions? Any public questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Are you presuming that these are going to be mostly residents, and that the council members will be at most quietly sitting in the back of the Zoom room?
It's however council members wish to attend or involve themselves, sir. We're doing this as kind of a listening session to help the staff team put together things for the council. But as with all of our meetings, the mayor and council are welcome, or all of our community meetings, mayor and council are welcome to attend.
Okay, and the meetings will be recorded?
Yes, sir. And we'll make them available through our various social media platforms if folks want to go back and rewatch them as well.
I might do that. That's the quietest way to attend a meeting, is to watch the recording of it. So interested to hear, but don't want to change the tone of the room necessarily. So, okay, let's move on to discussion item forum for the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA update.
And we have Director Shelton here this evening for that. Actually, he has, I think, the next 3 items. So, Ryan?
I do. Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. I'm here tonight to provide an update on the American Rescue Plan Act programming that the Mayor and Council has established. So in Resolution 2022 R06, the town established the Emergency Housing Assistance Program. And on April 4th, the Mayor and Council approved the partnership with SEED to administer this program. SEED was then provided funds from the Economic Recovery Strategy Fund, funded by the ARPA funds that have been sent to the town, and as well as economic development funds for those who would be ineligible for the federal dollars. The Food Assistance Grant Program was also established in 2022 with Resolution 2022 R04 on March 17th to support nonprofit and faith-based organizations with their existing food programs. And the town received 7 applications and selected 3 of these organizations: Brighter Bites, Shepherd's Table, and CCAR CDC. Each month, these organizations, both for the Housing Assistance Program and the Food Assistance Grant Program, are required to submit a monthly report on the 15th detailing how their activities had gone for the month before. For the activity through May, the town's partners provided 2,462 meals through delivery or pickup, provided 230 households with groceries, and received 20 applications for the Housing Assistance Program. At a previous meeting, the food assistant grant recipients had requested an extension to provide them with more time to expend the funds. And the mayor and council granted this, altering their deadline from June 30th to August 31st. Staff were expecting a little bit more activity in the housing assistance program and has scheduled a meeting early this week to meet with SEED to better understand the need and the interaction between that SEED has had with our residents, and perhaps amending the program to better meet the need of our residents and determining some new steps forward for the program. Are there any questions on the updates for these programs?
I don't think so. Not myself.
No, I don't have any. It's pretty self-explanatory. Thank you.
This is good news. Thank you for the report.
Absolutely.
Are there any public comments? Any members of the public here? I don't see any. Okay. No additional comments. Why don't we move on to agenda item 5, Rise Zone Rental Program.
So I thought I was sharing the right screen before? I hope I was. I'm sharing the right screen now. Well, good evening again, Mayor and Council. I'm here to provide an update on the Rise Zone rental program. So as a reminder, in December of 2021, the Mayor and Council adopted a resolution 2021 R15 supporting the town's participation in the Greater College Park Regional Institution Strategic Enterprise Zone application, the Rise Zone application, with the University of Maryland, the county, the city of College Park. This program provides income and property tax credits to qualifying businesses within a geographical area designated by the Maryland Department of Commerce. The Greater College Park Rise Zone is the part that is contained within town is primarily along River Road, and those office buildings contained therein. During the 2021 session, the Maryland General Assembly passed House Bill 1279, expanding the purposes of the Rise Zone to allow qualified institutions, the county, or a municipal corporation to establish a program to provide rental assistance to qualified business entities with matching amounts from the Rise Zone Fund at a rate of 3-to-1. They had made this adjustment because many of the smaller or businesses that were looking to partner with the university and take advantage of this program were unable to do so because they did not own the building, and the property tax credits therefore were not as appealing to them. So they, as I said, the Maryland General Assembly amended the program to allow the applicants for the Rise Zone to establish a rental program that would go along with the existing benefits of the program. And recently, the town, the University of Maryland, the county, and the city of College Park have been meeting to discuss potential rental assistance program items. The university is actually assigned a staff member to administer the program, but the group is still finalizing details for the program. Actually, I believe the staff member is under in Ed McGinnis's office, actually. So it's funny seeing him here today. So both the county and the city of College Park staff have suggested that their organizations would be able to contribute funds for the program, with each municipality's contribution applying only to businesses within their jurisdiction. And in the future, after details have been established, staff will return to the mayor and council with a funding request for the program, and funds would be available from the Economic Recovery Strategy Fund, the ARPA fund, under the small business item. Are there any questions about the Rise Zone rental program?
Council members, are there questions?
I have none, no.
What time scale, early this fall?
I would, yes. Occasionally I could be too optimistic, but I believe we can have it this fall. Yes.
Okay. Very good. Any public comments? I still see no members of the public apparently, so let's move on to street furniture in town, benches, CIP project 12 PW 10.
Good evening again. The public works staff have compiled a report of the public benches throughout the town, and 18 of these benches are to the point that they require a replacement. The town's current benches have wooden components, which has caused them to weather more quickly, and the replacement options are constructed of metal, making them much more resistant to this type of weather. There are two options for the design. The first is a flat back design, and the second is an arched back design, and I can share some photos in a moment, but the town has learned that each bench will cost $958. And if the town replaces all the recommended benches, the total cost would be $18,213. And in the meantime, until the town can replace all the benches, public works staff will make sure that those benches that are currently in inoperable conditions can be amended so that or corrected so that they could be used until their replacement has arrived. So I will scroll down to the photos to show the flat back and the arch back. Those are the two options for the replacement benches. Are there opinions on either of these options?
I know
Councilmember?
I prefer an archback. I think it looks nicer. Do they only come in black though?
Good evening, if I may, Mr. Mayor, chime in. Not that I know the answer to that question exactly, but I did want to interject that the flatback actually better matches the corner cans that we've been purchasing over the last couple of years. And I also want to mention that the staff initiated the survey and condition assessment of these benches. One staff in particular, Gary Davis, took note that many of them were deteriorating and took the initiative to do the survey and assess their condition, as well as identify potential replacements for them. They're both wrought iron, so I guess in as much as the corner cans are as well, they would match. But in terms of style, overall presentation, I think they better match the corner cans, the flatback version. We can check to see if other colors are available. Do you have a preference, council members, to color? I guess everyone is familiar with the style benches we have now and the color. That's really consistent. Ryan, you have an image of that as well.
The only two images I have are the archback.
I sent you one a minute ago. I captured some images from Google of the benches in the town center and in front of the town hall.
Okay, let me pull that up.
Oh, I like the bench in front of town hall. It's very comfy.
Lately? Or you're pulling our legs here?
No, I've always liked it. It's, it's a bench.
Can I ask while Mr. Shelton, there it is.
Granted, I haven't sat on it during this presidency, so.
Yeah, it certainly looks better in this image. I believe it's from 2019.
Okay.
And we have to paint that one pretty regularly. And there might be some structural issues with it as well.
I will say this, the style of that bench at town center, it's just, there's just something about, it's just something about it I like. It just has a nice feel to it. My one concern, I'm looking more at, having a preference for the archback as opposed to the flat back, is that I mean, there's a curvature at least in the structure, you know, kind of like as what you see with this bench. There's this curvature here with, you know, the way the boards are situated, you know, the backing and the seat part, the way the legs are done and how everything like comes up and around. There's just a nice softness to it that's, you know, I find a little more feeling than what I'm seeing with the flat back and the way those are. When you look at those are very, you know, very linear and very you know, a lot of right angles on it. It's just, you know, it's kind of what I'm seeing in that. So, and I think also, you try and sit down on one of those benches on a warm day, especially if they're black, they're going to be searing hot.
Mhm.
You know, that's the one thing.
Would you like to see more options?
As
well as
it wouldn't hurt. I don't think it would hurt. I know I would appreciate it. Yes, please.
It looks to me that really the only difference between the two options we have now is the shape of the back. Is that correct? Because the legs and the arms look very similar between those two to my eye.
That's correct.
Okay. I have to say that my sort of gut reaction was similar to Councilmember Lingua's, that the curved top looked a little bit more appealing to me, but
the archback.
Yes, but I like to stare at them a little bit more and not necessarily make a decision this evening. So given the issues brought up. And just out of curiosity, do you know what the working life of these benches is? Is there a projected lifetime, or is that dependent on maintenance?
I'm sure it's depending on maintenance. I don't know specifically. I don't know, Ryan, if that information wasn't included in what the staff provided. We can get that answer as well.
Okay, just curious to know how long, because $20,000 is a lot, and it's fine, but, you know, just be nice to know if these will last for 50 years or whether they're 20 years and what the lifetime is expected to be.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, and I had to step away for a brief moment, so my apologies, but we also have to make sure they're the proper height for accessibility, and make sure that they are structurally capable of supporting the imposed load in terms of number of folks who will be on them.
Sure, I would be surprised if anyone is marketing benches like this without having checked both of those items, but I think it is important to make sure, because you never know what someone's going to bid with. Okay.
So add something, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilman Lingua. Those metal seats can get really hot in the summertime, and evenly it's cold in the winter. The other ones that we were looking at, the beige ones, even though they tend to get hot, they don't get as hot as those total metal seats. Do you imagine that on a 90-degree day?
Oh,
this is not having to sit on. Too hot.
So an interesting point, and we unfortunately, I think we have to balance the maintenance needs against because the beige ones, the color is a lot of it, but it's also just that the wooden materials or the synthetic materials that they're made from.
I think they do have some materials that look like wood, but don't get as hot as the metal. And the maintenance on it is very low maintenance.
In fact, most of those, or at least a good number of those that we have now, are exactly that. But they actually didn't wear as well as we thought they would. I don't know the date that they were installed. It probably happened over different times for different locations. But according to the staff, they didn't perform as well as we anticipated
Okay.
in terms of where. Yeah.
And that's still something that we can look at, council member. Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll have an update in 2 weeks.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments before we leave this topic?
No, I'm all set.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's move on to item 7, the Prince George's County Police Accountability Legislation CB 021-2022. The bill that keeps on giving. Is there a staff presentation?
Not anything additional than what's in the memo, sir. We've laid out what the amendments were from the county council as a committee of the whole. And I think it spells, the attachment spells out where the county is. And then it'll be up for a discussion with the mayor and council if they want to comment on these latest amendments.
So I'll just comment on my reading of them. I think that the county council addressed a lot of issues, some of them that we had not brought up. In an interesting way, the split of nominations to the board is now between the county council and the executive, as far as previously it was mostly the executive. Excuse me, with approval by the county council. And there's room in there to address our expressed concern that there be outreach to the municipalities to solicit nominations for membership. That was one of our major concerns with this, at least my major concern. And what it says is that a process will be established. And so there will be some process, but it's not specified in this legislation. And I didn't watch the meeting where this was discussed because I was working, but I would guess that they were having enough issue with the many amendments that they introduced and probably didn't want to get into that long discussion at that time. So I honestly believe that we can probably take that that amendment as being responsive to our request, and we just have to make sure that when the time comes that they are reaching out to the municipalities to do that. I didn't see any new issues for the town in my reading of the amended bill. I'm disappointed they didn't take our suggestion of excluding recently shifted people who would have otherwise been excluded from membership, but they did introduce a provision such that the board cannot have more than one former police officer on it. And so that, I think, does partially address that issue as well. So at this point, I don't think we have too much to introduce, but I'm willing to hear from the rest of the council on that item. Any thoughts?
You know, I've bandied it about, but I just don't seem to be able to come up what would be a good way to go, because it's a real challenging question.
So are you saying that you want to, we should perhaps request having more specific instructions of how membership will be, like, again, reach out in that way?
Yeah, I think we just need to understand a little bit more of how this works. I mean, I can understand how, I just, it's actually, yeah, you just kind of hit it on the head. That was the one thing that I kept coming back to on the one side. It's just about just really having a better understanding on. Because yeah, it's in those details as to whether or not you're going to have a committee that's going to be made up that's really going to be meeting what it's being set forth to do, or if it falls short. It's those details.
Yeah, and you know, they put more details in about what the membership of the board would be. But again, you know, the process and exactly how that will be decided is still unclear.
Yeah, and you know me, I'm a process guy, so.
I believe me, I know.
Take that as a compliment.
It is. So does staff, do you know what the next action of the county council is on this bill, what the schedule of that is?
Director Barnes, I think you tried to find out all the different things, but we don't have a schedule. Is that correct?
That is correct. I could not find a date for the next reading or whenever they would have any follow-up discussion about this.
So we can't do anything official at this point because we're not in a special legislative, and we haven't announced one. I would propose, Councilmember Lingua, that you and I reach out individually to members of the county council and see if we can get something added. And if there is time, then we can bring this up at the July 11th meeting for the town taking an official position.
Sure. Sure.
So forward.
Yeah. Let's talk later and coordinate that and decide on a time frame.
Okay, sounds good. Any additional council comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 8. Change of start time for council meetings. I brought this up at a recent meeting that my work schedule is, or my workplace is going back to being on site in scenic Gaithersburg. I've been having difficulty getting here on time, back here on time for the 7 o'clock meetings. I got home at 6:35 this evening, and that was with some pretty nice traffic. So I would like to, with the agreement of council, propose changing the start time for council meetings, starting with the August work session to be 7:30 p.m. So
I could work with that.
Council members, Mayers and Mejia, would that work better for you? Is that a good time? Do you want to go later than that?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Works fine, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you for working with my restrictions. It's that commute can be really long some days, and it's nice to have a little bit more time to finish up my work and get home. Any additional council comments or public comments on that item? Okay, item 9 is minutes. As usual, please review, find anything that doesn't sound quite right please contact Director Barnes to let her know about that. since otherwise it will become history after we approve the minutes. And will be difficult to change, certainly.
Literally, it'll become history.
That's right. So let's move on to new business. I believe that there is a formal item of new business. Is that correct?
Mayor Thompson, I just added some materials based on the legislation that you had sent an email about recently, just in case you wanted to talk about it tonight. I wanted to provide the actual legislation for the council.
Sure, I'll just spend a minute or two on this. I actually think the legislation is generally fine. So there's a process under the new zoning ordinance, which is not fully implemented yet, certainly, where projects have an informal meeting prior to submission to get community feedback. And these are mandatory meetings, and certain information is provided and collected. And the changes in this legislation are adding a little bit more information to what needs to be collected and provided and become part of the permanent record. And that includes, let me see, I'm scrolling quickly through here. So the zoning ordinance will make the written summaries of pre-application neighborhood meetings part of the permanent record. So those will become part of that history. And also anyone who attends a meeting or signs up to receive an email copy will receive an email copy of that summary and can thus have it in hand when they go and testify in front of the county council on the projects. The one, I actually sent a letter just as myself, suggesting that the written summary should also include at least a brief amount of information. Written summary currently is just who was invited, who attended, and what materials were provided to them in that meeting. And I suggested that sort of summarizing the feedback that was received by the applicant would be a good thing to include in that as well. And I've received a contact back from Councilmember Glaros about that, and she's going to be reaching out to me over the next few weeks. But other than that, I actually think this is very good legislation. So does anybody have questions or comments on that?
I'm glad to see that it's finally happening, actually.
Mm-hmm. So I have a penciled in, not scheduled, but penciled in appointment to have a conversation with Councilmember Glaros on that sometime before the next council meeting. So if something's necessary, I will add it to the agenda for the legislative session. But I don't think that there necessarily will be. There was another piece of legislation which I reviewed, which honestly confused me, which was requiring DPI to set up a process for reviewing electric vehicle charging stations. And why that level of specificity was required in the zoning ordinance didn't make sense to me. And Councilmember Glaros and I are going to discuss that as well. I was just so confused by that piece of legislation that I didn't even send a comment to anyone except to her and just say, can you explain why this is happening? So that's new business. Are there any other? No, those are the two. That's the one item under new business. Does anyone else have items of new business this evening?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
It might be an item of new business, or it might be a new facet or wrinkle to an item of business already before us in terms of our efforts to promote pollinator habitats and of the sort. And that is the idea of advertising or helping to help advertise for the town for specific amounts of time in the fall and in the spring for plant swaps. As you may know, we have a number of folks who have gardens around town, fair number of folks who have gardens around town, and they have various plants that just proliferate and they grow. And if they aren't able to find them a new place to go, unfortunately, they get pulled just so that they can manage the rest of them. Along with what we're looking to do in terms of with a seeding program. And my thought was, and I'd be happy to get folks in touch with staff as well to help with this in terms of language and all, to be able to promote this through the crier, the town website, and also town announcing far enough ahead in time so folks can prepare for a specific number of weeks during each season, to which mostly, for the weekends, for a plant swap among residents could take place.
Yeah, interesting idea. How do you think this would be promoted? Would this go, just a statement of on the town's Facebook page or
Facebook page, website, town crier, even town announces, really just put it on different platforms as well, and essentially announcing probably a good number of weeks ahead of time. I mean, one time we could start advertising, beginning this is with the September crier for plant swap. That's going to probably be happening more towards like the mid to later part of October. And then again, a second announcement in the October crier, just so the folks that or see it or aware of it and have time, they want to prepare beds, things of that nature, and would be able to see what other folks would be interested in being involved with it, something of that nature. And again, I know folks who I've talked to about this who would be happy to help get this organized, set up, be able to provide language on it, so that whoever's reading it will understand clearly what's going on.
Okay, why don't you and I discuss this over the next few weeks? It sounds like it's mostly just going to be a publicity and information exchange.
Yeah, it's just something that folks, in town, it's just really being able to help organize such an activity. That's really going to be more something that town residents can take part in.
Right. I mean, I can imagine if I were doing this, that having the town have a push on Facebook, and then people in the comments could say, yeah, I have 5 pots of zinnias that I don't need, and somebody could say, I'm going to drop by your house and pick them up, and
exactly.
So yeah, why don't we discuss this and see if the council needs to take action, or whether we can just figure out a way to do this within current programs.
Okay. I think it's another way to help, encourage folks if they're thinking about gardens to be able to start something, get something going. It's good motivation. They can check out with folks and see what folks have, understand, and then they're getting in touch with other folks who like to garden, who I'm sure are more than happy to offer any tips that they have, that they could.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. Any other items of new business? Any items of unfinished business? My stomach is telling me it's time for dinner, so why don't we we all take off for the evening, and many thanks to staff, many thanks to council members for being here, and have a good evening.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.